Hi, this is Michael Bolduc. Welcome to the Coaching Business System, how to make $1 million within 30 days. Now, we're going to talk about the 7 laws of branding your coaching business or consulting business or therapy business. And now, by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what branding is. And branding is really, really important because it will make it much easier for you to get leads and get appointments and get business and build a successful business. Now, in my experience, many coaches know very little about branding, so that's why we're going to do this video today. So, now let me ask you this question. If I had a Rolex and I sold it for $100, would I sell a lot of Rolex? And the answer is yes, I would sell millions overnight, but it would destroy the brand of Rolex. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what branding is and how easy it is for you to brand your business to make $1 million yen per month. So let's get started right now. You see, in today's society, products and services are bought, they're not sold. So in other words, when you're creating that brand, you're using the law of attraction pretty much. You're making your brand so attractive that you become a magnet, that people come to you because you're so attractive to them, that your coaching is so attractive to them, that your consulting is so attractive to them that they want it. And that branding, it happens by following those 7 laws. So let's go and let's start talking about those 7 laws right now. Now, before I tell you the first law, I want you to think of top brands. What comes to mind? McDonald's, Microsoft, IBM, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, right? All of these brands are known as top brands. But what do they all have in common? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how they use these 7 laws to build a successful brand. Now, in this particular video, we're not talking about just branding, we're actually talking about personal branding. Because as coach and consultant and therapist, we sell ourselves, don't we? But how do we sell ourselves? How do we create that personal branding that creates that attraction to the marketplace that they want us? They want our coaching. Well, this is exactly why I'm going to start off with law number 1, which is called the law of contraction. You see, in order to become attractive to people, you need to position yourself as a leader. This is what the law of contraction is. By creating a leadership position, you become attractive immediately to other people. And the reason this is so powerful is because your identity creates other people's response to you. And the way you create that identity is you got to make sure that your goal should be to create a leadership position. And that leadership position can be achieved in many different ways. Let me share with you just how easy it is to do that right now. The biggest mistake that you can make when branding your business, especially in the coaching, would be to say that I'm a life coach. And I certainly have never used that particular word as I'm a life coach because it's a very generic brand and it doesn't create the internal representation that you're a leader. So instead, what you want to do is you want to create a leadership in a different way. You could do it in many different ways by creating a subcategory, for example. You could say, you know, I'm a leader in helping people in their health or in relationship or in their career. So what you're trying to do is create a leadership in a subcategory of achieving goals or, you know, a particular person that you help. I once coached another coach, and what he targeted is businesses who in the recruitment business. So in other words, he would be the leader for these people who had a recruitment business. They were salespeople particularly, and he would target those. And he was the leader in that area. In other words, his brand was about recruitment coaching. And no one had ever done that. So when no one's ever created that brand, you become the leader. And that was very smart of him, and he made a very successful business. And it was very easy for him to get clients. That's an example of doing that. Another way to create a brand, and would be perhaps like many people have done, is they get associated with an existing brand. Many people have done that with my brand. They've joined my coaching certification program, and then they use the fact that they're a graduate from that leadership, in which has become the leader in helping other people to set and achieving their goals. Now, you don't always need to be the top leader. You could just be tied in. If you're connected with that leader, then you can build a brand. And that's how I built my brand, is I found the world's #1 coach when I first started my coaching business. And then I learned everything that coach had, and I tied myself in. And that we call marketing association. So in other words, you just need to tie yourself in with somebody that's already a leader, and instantly you can become a leader. Even better is if you can become a master coach, then immediately that separates you from every other life coach out there. Because you don't want to be just another life coach. That's not going to be a leadership position in your brand. Now, it's very easy to create that leadership position. One of the methods you can use is just start to brainstorm 10 to 20 different ideas a day. What could be my leadership position? Is it going to be who am I going to target? You can write 10 ideas every day about, what is my brand? How can I be a leader? And what is the best people I can target? And just brainstorm. But it's really easy, and it's not the most important law, but it is an important law because you don't want to be just another guy, just another life coach. You want to be a person of leadership, a person who they feel can help them. Because your clients, when they have problems, they're looking for somebody that's already solved that problem. And if you position yourself as an expert, as somebody who's already solved that problem, immediately that builds the perception of leadership, you see, and that's how we create the brand. And that's how we apply law number 1, the law of contraction. And many people who come to my coaching certification course, some have created that specialization, like one of my graduates, Nami, she specialized in the relationship coach. Another one who came to my coaching certification, she was a doctor, so I helped her create a brand called the Success Doctor, and she built a very successful coaching business. And there's many ways to do that. It's much easier than you ever imagined possible before, but the biggest mistake is you're just another life coach. And then you have a hard time having people come to you and listen to you because they want a leader in their life. So that's how this law works. So let's go on now to the second law of building your brand in your coaching, consulting, or therapy business. Law number 2 is called the law of publicity. Now here's what this means. Once you create your brand, and we'll talk about the brand name and how to create a logo and all that, but once you create your brand, what you need to do is bring it to your target market over and over again. And the best way to do that is let's say if you collect their names and emails, then you send them newsletter or you have a blog and you keep constant contact with them. I've subscribed to all kinds of businesses on the internet and I constantly get their emails. And because I constantly get their email, I'm constantly, their brand is always in front of my eyes. I'm always looking at their brand, and that repetition of your brand is what creates brand popularity, or actually brand recognition rather. And brand recognition means I've heard of you before, I've been seeing you for years, and I've asked many people who became my client, asked them, hey, why did you sign up for my program? And they said, because I kept seeing your ads, they said. I kept seeing your email message over and over again, you see. So once you become known, meaning first time you have a prospect come to you, if they don't know you, then there's no brand popularity. But after you keep sending more advertising, more emails to them, more newsletter over and over again, eventually, you're somebody they know because that repetition makes you well known. And that's one of the keys on how you create your brand. We want to create a leadership, but we also want to create some brand recognition with your target market, especially your email list that you create. Now, there's a lot of ways. You already have brand recognition because people already know you, your friends, your associate, your family, your network around you even you already have that. In fact, people who come to my coaching certification usually begin their coaching business just by tapping into their circle of influence. And most people have 100 to 200 people in that circle, and that's a great place to just start building your coaching business. But once you extend all that, then you want to use referrals and you want to use internet marketing, newsletters, blog, all that stuff, Facebook, and include as many ways as possible to start getting your brand known, including at a later stage. You don't need to start right away, but at a later stage, maybe even publish a book. And many of my clients are doing that now, and they're finding that a very effective strategy. But that's a far off place. To make $1 million per month, you don't need to publish your own book. It's quite simple. You just need to create your brand, create the leadership, start putting your name out there over and over again so you can create that brand popularity. It's important for you to always put your name out there because the moment people start to remember you, they're going to start to trust you more. And that's why you want to put your name everywhere, in your business cards, your email signature, your website, your blog, your Facebook, everywhere you can, so that you can create that brand popularity. And once you achieve that, it's going to be much easier for you to get leads, and because you're well known. Now, you may not be well known all over Japan, and you know what? You don't need to. The fact is that you can't target everybody anyway. I mean, I'm not known to everybody in Japan, and yet I have a successful brand. So what does that mean? It means I have to target. I have to narrow down who's my target, who am I the best coach for, and I got to target these people. Now, before we can talk about a really great product or service, especially because we are selling ourselves, which we're selling our service, aren't we? We need to talk about the law of quality. Now, law of quality says that it's not really quality that creates your brand, but it is the perceived reality. What do I mean by that? It's not a battle of the truth, it's a battle of perceived reality. What I mean is that how do they perceive you? Because when we're selling ourselves, aren't we? And we're selling ourselves, and that means that we must create what we call an internal representation. That when they think about you, they have this great image that you're a valuable person in their life, that you can help them produce the result. And that's what the coaching is all about. You see, the core element of branding, for personal branding, for coaches, consultants, and therapists is that we get results. And if you're a therapist, it could be that you change people's life. You change their emotions, you change their behaviors. If you're a coach, you help them achieve the goals or learn new skills. If you're a consultant, then you give them a proven strategy, a step-by-step strategy to help them get what they want. You see, so that's a very core element of our brand. Now, how do we create, though? You may have a great product, but that doesn't mean that your prospect knows you have a great product. So the goal here of law number 3 is to create that internal represent, that image, that personal image, that you are credible, you have credentials, and that you are valuable. And let me give you some techniques on how to do that. In fact, I've had an interview just recently with Brian Tracy. He's written many books on sales and all kinds of books on different topics. And he's really great at personal branding. I interviewed him for an hour and asked him what is the key to building a successful personal branding. Now, one of the keys that he shared with me was that you need to dress really nice. He says that every time he does a seminar, he always wears a tie. And it's true. I've known Brian Tracy now for 21 years, and I've always saw him wear a red tie for 21 years. That's very consistent. And I asked him about that. I said, well, what do you think people don't wear a tie? Do you recommend that? He says, no. I said, you should always wear a tie. Look professional. Your website should have a tie, you know. And, you know, every advertising, every time you meet a prospect, if you go networking, make sure you look really good. Why? Because it presents value. See, when people look at you, you have 3 seconds. They have 3 seconds to make a good impression. First impressions are made within only 3 seconds. So how you look is 55% of communication, right? So make sure you look good, you dress nice. And I've seen many of my graduates buy some really nice suits, and they would go to network events and they look fantastic, and they got a nice business card. You know, they spent a bit of money to make a really nice business card, and then they go out and they network and they get lots of leads. You know, they find all these clients just by networking. And networking is one of the best ways to get clients. But in order to be good at it, you have to make sure you look good, you have a great business card. And Brian Tracy talked about that a lot, because you've got to create that image that people judge you by how you look. Because we're not selling a product, we're selling ourselves. You're selling yourself. And if you're selling yourself, then you got to make sure you project an image of success. Because we are selling ourselves, and that confidence, that likability, like we're friendly, right? People love that. In fact, one of the things that one of the person I spoke to today said, one of the most important thing about the coach is, do I like that person? And that's very true. The more that the client likes you, the more they're going to want to hire you. And that's another way to create that perception, that brand that builds value. And it's very easy to do. There's a lot of tools on how to do that. And we teach that in a more advanced course like Coaching Certification. But in essence, it's much easier to do, and we're going to teach that in the 16 steps as well later on in the 5th video. And one more point about building that value is, when I was talking to Brian Tracy, was one of the ways I've done it is I've had a lot of success stories on my website or my marketing. But in other ways, you could have just somebody endorsing you, especially somebody famous. If they're famous and they endorse you and say, wow, this person's really great, and if you hire this person, you really get great results. Brian Tracy says, look, you don't need 25, but you need at least one really great testimonial or endorsement of somebody saying how great you are. And that's really easy to do, because you just have to help one person achieve their goal and then get a really great endorsement, record it on audio or video or have them write a letter for you, and then use it over and over again to build that value, to prove to people that, hey, I've got a successful brand. I really can help you get what you want. And here's, this great story of one of my clients who achieved the result. And they really read it out to them or have them read it or put it on video. And wow, that can make a great impact on your brand instantly, because it's not you saying, it's somebody else. And if they write you a really great letter, that can make the world of a difference for you. So when I meet coaches, many times they make a mistake and they charge a low price. And there's absolutely nothing wrong to charge a low price. I've done that. I remember charging $100 per session, which is about 10,000 yen. And there's nothing wrong, because it allows you to get started. And you don't have the objection that it costs too much. But here's the problem. When you have a low price, what kind of perception does it create? Usually it's cheap, right? So that's why I asked you the question at the beginning. Could you sell a Rolex for $100? And of course, you'd sell millions, but it would kill the brand. Why? Because the way they build this valuable watch, this valuable Rolex, is by having a high price. Now in coaching, the solution is don't get rid of your low price. I'm not saying that you should get rid of it, but have two different prices. Make a higher price and a lower price, so that the higher price, and begin with the higher price. When you tell the price to your prospect about your coaching, always begin with a high price. And that higher price should be double whatever your low price is. And the reason you want to do that is it's instantly going to create that internal representation of, wow, you're a valuable coach. You charge that much, that means you must be very valuable. It creates that presupposition. And then present your lower price and say, oh, and if you don't want that package, we have another package and it's only this much. Or you can create even three packages where one is very expensive, which creates that image, wow, you're a valuable coach. You're the Rolex of coaching. You're the Mercedes of coaching because you charge so much. In fact, that's how Mercedes built their brand. Back in the old days, there was no Mercedes. There was only Cadillac. And Mercedes came along, and in order to create that luxury brand, they charged twice as much as a Cadillac. And that was never done before. But instantly, the internal representation of the Mercedes-Benz was, that must be a really good car because it's twice as much as the Cadillac. And they created a very successful brand. I can't emphasize this enough. Don't start with a low price. Start with a high price and then build the way down. And that's the strategy. It's very effective to build the perception of value. Which brings us to law number 4, the law of the word. Now, the law of the word is really about, what is branding? Well, branding is a name, isn't it? It's just a name. Now, when you think of all the most successful brands around the world, McDonald's, Subway, Mercedes, BMW, what do they all have in common? And they use one word. Now, this can be very valuable in creating the name of your brand. But in other words, you want to make sure that you don't have a really long name for your brand, because the longer the name, they're probably not going to remember it. And if they don't remember it, then it's not a brand. See, brand must be remembered. So usually 1 or 2 names maximum, but the best brands use one name. And the key here to branding is not to use a generic name, life, coaching, business. That's a very generic name. You don't want to do that because it doesn't have the impact that you're a unique brand. Because the question people have in their mind is, what makes you different than every other coaches? So one is, you got to match your name with your leadership position. That's the key, okay? And when you do that, you're not like all these other life coaches. Now you're one step above, and maybe if you can, be at a higher level. And that should be your plan, to get up there in the leadership position. And the more you begin that way and you realize you need to create that leadership right away, you're going to be more effective. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can, create that unique name. What I mean by not using a generic name is, I'll give you an example. For example, you use Intel chip, right? I mean, everybody knows that brand, or almost everybody does, because it's one of the most popular chip in the world for computers. But how did they come up with that brand? Well, I'll tell you how. The way they came up with it is they asked themselves, well, what exactly do we have here? What is this? And they said, well, this is an intelligent chip. I mean, it's the brains of the computer. And they said, well, then why don't we call it intelligent chip? But the marketing consultant, obviously for that company, said, you can't use a generic name. And he says, well, one idea is we could cut that intelligent name in half. We could call it Intel chip. And that's how they came up with the name. They cut intelligent in half. And that's what I mean by not using a generic name. Now, Intel is unique. Nobody had ever used that name before. And that's why it's so successful. How can you apply that in your business? You don't need to, but it will make a world of a difference if you can. And that brings us to law number 5, which is the law of the visual hammer. Now, this is a very unique metaphor. What I really mean is that not only do you have the words, but you have the image. You see, because we have two parts of the brain. One is the left side, the logical side, right? And the other part is the emotional side. The right side of the brain is emotions. So the words can appeal to the logic, but the image appeals to the emotions. And when you're building your coaching business, you really want to make sure, of course, that you dress nice because that has a picture. And that's why I was telling you, keep an image, keep the same kind of suit, the same image over and over again, and because that's your brand, you're the brand, look a certain way, have a certain look about you, and that creates that visual hammer that, hey, this is Michael Bullock, that's how he looks like, and stay consistent with your look. That's one way to apply the visual hammer, and that you got to have that message as well. Like, for example, the color red, the tie. If you look up the word, what does the color red mean? It means power. So a large part of my coaching brand is about power, which means taking action, right? So this is a core message that you can use. Use colors, use an image. But it's not only that. There are other ways you can use the visual hammer to communicate your message. Let me give you some examples for BMW. Their core message, which I like to call the nail that they're trying to plant into the unconscious mind, is that BMW is the ultimate driving machine, right? Now, that's their words that they use, their tagline. We call that a tagline. But you know what? What is the image that they use to combine both of them? And if you've been watching their commercials, usually you see BMW, and what do? They're turning a corner at high speed. And they show that over and over and over again. That plants a message in the unconscious mind that this car's got great handling. And when you use ultimate driving machine, it really communicates a leadership position again, that they're the best car for handling. And that's how they build their brand. So that's what I mean by image. So you don't want to copy other people. You want to be unique. Create something different so that you create your brand. The most important thing is how you look. The visual appeal to you. You got to look confident. You got to look professional. And then you got to create that image in people's mind that you really can help them. That's the key here. Don't get too complicated. You're not trying to sell BMW. You're selling yourself. That's what personal branding is about. And that brings us to law number 6, which is the law of consistent. And what this means is that once you create your name or your brand, your visual hammer, as I said before, you want to be consistent with that message, or your look. Like if you have a red tie and a certain suit, then you want to keep dressing that way. You want to keep showing the same image, the same message over and over again. Because think, for example, for McDonald's. Do you know what their logo looks like? Can you imagine it? And you probably imagine this big M and it's yellow, right? Well, have they ever changed that? And the answer is no, they've never changed it. I remember looking at the big M that was yellow when I was just a young boy. And they've been doing this for decades and decades. So it's very important when you're creating that image of yourself and your brand to be consistent. Okay, and that's how you create a brand. Consistency is the key. And I've seen that mistake being made with a few different people in Japan. You don't want to create a brand and then change it, after a few years, because then you've ruined all the advertising you've done to get your brand known. Don't do that. Stay consistent with your brand. I can't emphasize this enough. And that brings us to the most important law. Now, you don't need to apply all these 7 laws, but there's one law that I want to emphasize more than any other law, and this is how I built my brand. I didn't even know these 6 other laws when I began my coaching business, and I still made more than $10,000 per month. The law of return is the key here, and here's what this means. It's called the success rate of your product or service, meaning every brand has a promise that they make. And in the coaching, we make a promise that we're going to help you achieve your goals. Or in a consultant, we help them to give them an effective strategy that will succeed. Or as a therapist, your promise is you're going to help them change their behavior or emotion. Does that make sense? That's called the brand promise. The brand success rate is how many of your actual clients get success. And that's critical because, you see, that's how I built my coaching business, by helping many people achieve the result. And what they did is they referred all their friends to me. And I had thousands of people come up to me because I helped so many people achieve their goals. And that's why I call it the law of return, because the more you help other people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. And there's nothing more important than that. Like I said, I have one client who doesn't even do any advertising, no website, nothing, but he produced a result for the client and then he just asks for referral, and that's all he does. He just gets referral after referral, never needs to advertise at all. So the real key here is to really get the result. And you want to measure. You don't want to just assume that, you want to measure how many percent specifically are able to get the result. And that's what we did for the coaching certification. If you remember, I told you before that we had a 93% success rate. And we measure that, and the reason we measure, we want to know how successful is my coaching certification brand. And I'm very proud of a 93% success rate because I haven't heard of any other coaching school that has that high of a success rate. We've had so many people come from other coaching certification schools and they come to mine because they know they'll be able to get clients, because that's one of the major benefits you gain. Now, that's called the brand value, and not just the brand perceived value, because we talked about that before, but the actual brand value. And if you really get result, you're going to build a very successful brand in your business. So, that's it for branding. It's really easy to do. Don't make it too complicated. The most important part is you get the result, and you can build a very successful coaching, consulting, or therapy business. This is Michael Bolduc signing off, saying you can do it to your success and happiness. Bye for now.